All right, you saw the title. You know why you're here. This is my 2026 NFL mock draft. And before I get into this, I don't really watch a lot of college football, so if these don't make any sense, you'll just have to bear with me. I think the first few will make sense, but after that, it's kind of a wild card. But that's how the NFL draft is anyway, so we'll hop right into it. And starting off, the first pick should be the most obvious of the draft. I have the Raiders taking Fernando Mendoza, quarterback from Indiana University. I mean, this is self-explanatory. I mean, literally right when the Raiders were projected to get the first overall pick, everyone already knew they were going to take Fernando Mendoza. He's a quarterback. The Raiders need a quarterback. He's the best quarterback in this draft. He had an unbelievable postseason and an unbelievable final game in college where he basically put the team on his back and won them the national championship. So the Raiders are taking Fernando Mendoza. This is by far the most sure pick in the entire draft. All right, and at number 2, this is where things get a little interesting. I have the Jets taking Arvell Reese, edge from Ohio State. And the reason I say this is interesting is because David Bailey is going up a lot of people's boards. And people are saying he might get drafted at 2 by the Jets, which I'm not going to lie, that could totally happen. But for now, I'm going to say that Arvell Reese is going to be taken. And the Jets defense was horrible last year. It was absolutely terrible. It was like dead last in almost every category, and they literally didn't get a single interception all season. And that sounds like a cornerback problem, but it all starts with the front 7. And if you can get a good guy on the front 7 like Arvell Reese, it's going to help your defense out quite a bit. And I think the Jets are going to do just that. All right, and at number 3, I have the Arizona Cardinals taking David Bailey, the edge from Texas Tech. And I mean, kind of what I said, he could be at 2, but I have him at 3. You know, could go either way. I mean, self-explanatory, David Bailey's a great player, and the Cardinals need just about everything. And so when you need everything, the best course of action is to just take the best player available. And in my opinion, David Bailey is the best player currently left on the board. So yeah, I have the Cardinals taking him, and we'll see if that actually happens. All right, at number 4 overall, I have the Tennessee Titans taking running back Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame. And there's a lot of conversations going on about Jeremiah Love and why he's getting drafted so high, and that's fair. I mean, he is a running back, and running backs don't typically get drafted in the top 5, but Jeremiah Love is a really good player. And also, the Titans apparently have him as the number 1 player in the entire draft, because every team has different boards and shit like that. But apparently the Titans think this is the literal best player in the draft. So I'd be shocked if they don't take Jeremiah Love. I don't think they're going to trade this pick. I think they could. I mean, it would make sense to, but... And they do have a solid running back in Tony Pollard. But Tony Pollard's getting older, and, you know, they have Cam Ward. They want to give him a good running back, and that's exactly what I think they're going to do. All right, at number 5 overall, I have the New York Football Giants taking linebacker Sonny Styles from Ohio State. This one's also pretty simple. The Giants just traded away Dexter Lawrence, who was by far their best player on defense. So they need a little bit of help on defense now, and I think they're going to draft the best defensive player available in Sonny Styles. All right, at number 6 overall, I have the Cleveland Browns taking wide receiver Carnell Tate from Ohio State. This one, the Browns' offense last year was absolutely dreadful, and their defense was actually pretty good. So I really don't think they're taking defense. Offense, though, they definitely need some. They could use a quarterback, but they're probably going to give Shedeur Sanders another shot, and there's not exactly a great quarterback to draft here. They have a good running back. Quinshon Judkins is a pretty solid running back, so they're not going to go there. Not that there's another available running back that's, capable of being drafted here. So that leaves wide receiver. And Carnell Tate is the best wide receiver available. So yeah, Browns are going to take a starting step into making that offense watchable. All right, at number 7 overall, I have the Washington Commanders taking defensive lineman Ruben Bain from Miami. And this one, the Commanders' defense last year was really bad. And it was a bad season for the Commanders, despite the fact that they went to the NFC Championship the year prior. And I think they're going to rebuild that defense, and they're going to start by drafting Ruben Bain. All right, at number 8 overall, I have the New Orleans Saints taking safety Caleb Downs from Ohio State. And this one, I think the Saints could definitely improve their defense. It wasn't great last year. It wasn't like god-awful like the Jets, but it wasn't great. And I think they're going to try to improve it by drafting the best available safety in Caleb Downs. All right, at number 9 overall, I have the Kansas City Chiefs selecting cornerback Mansour Delane, or Delani, I don't even know. I'll say Delane. But this one, the Chiefs, they lost a lot of defensive players this offseason. They lost Brian Cook, who's now on the Bengals. They lost Trent McDuffie, who is now on the Rams. That's a huge loss. And, their defense wasn't great last year. And they're going to try and take a step, in my opinion, to rebuild that defense. And it's going to start by drafting cornerback Mansour Delane. All right, the Bengals pick belongs to the Giants. So the Giants with the 10th pick will take wide receiver Jordan Tyson from Arizona State. And this one is kind of interesting because they do have Malik Nabers, but they don't really have anyone else other than him. Like, it's just him in the wide receiver room. And they had Wan'Dale Robinson last year, but he's on the Titans now. And he actually had a good year. So they kind of have a void to fill there, and I think they're going to try and fill that void with Jordan Tyson. All right, with the 11th overall pick, I have the Miami Dolphins selecting offensive tackle Francis Mauigoa, I think is how you say that, ironically also from Miami. And this is another situation where it's kind of like the Cardinals. Like, the Dolphins don't really have that many good players anymore. They don't have Jalen Waddle anymore. They don't have Tyreek Hill. And they don't even have Tua anymore. They just lost so many players, and I think they're just going to try and rebuild the roster. And the best way, in my opinion, to build a roster is to get a solid offensive line, and getting a good O-line will help you do that. All right, with the 12th overall pick, I have the Dallas Cowboys selecting offensive tackle Spencer Fanu from Utah. And I know what you're thinking. The Cowboys need defense, and that's true. They need it more than a fish needs water. So why would I have them picking an offensive lineman? Well, the Cowboys are usually pretty good at keeping their offensive line pretty solid through, to be completely honest, their whole history. They've always had a good O-line, and the reason that they do is because they draft an offensive lineman before they really need one. And when you do that, that actually helps you out tremendously to keep your O-line solid. So I think that's going to be the thought process here for the Dallas Cowboys. All right, the Falcons pick belongs to the Rams, so the Rams will take with the 13th pick Monroe Freeling, an offensive tackle from Georgia. And the Rams roster is pretty close to complete, if I'm being honest, but at the same time, they could use another offensive lineman just to have a bit of safety for Matthew Stafford because he's getting older. And you never want your quarterback getting hit, but you especially don't want your quarterback getting hit when he's in his late 30s. And Stafford, he's at the end of his career, but he's still balling, and they're going to get an offensive tackle to assure that Stafford stays healthy. All right, at number 14 overall, I have the Baltimore Ravens selecting wide receiver Makai Lemon from University of South Carolina. So this one is another interesting one because you could argue that the Ravens need defense more than offense because their defense wasn't great last year. But I think their defense is going to be pretty good this year. They have Trey Hendrickson, who they got in free agency. They have Kyle Hamilton. And they still have Marlon Humphrey, who's not great, but he is still a solid player, in my opinion. And I think they need a wide receiver because the offense is good, but they don't really have a great wide receiver, too. They have Zay Flowers, but other than that, they don't have a whole lot. So I have the Ravens taking Makai Lemon. All right, and we got our first trade of the video. I have the Bucks trading the 15th overall pick to the Detroit Lions in exchange for the Lions' 17th overall pick and a Lions 4th round pick. And with the 15th pick, I have the Lions selecting cornerback Jermon McCoy from Tennessee. And I mean, I think he's going to help their defense out a lot. The Lions offense is generationally good, I'm not going to lie. It's unbelievable, but their defense could use some help. And I will say, to be fair to the Lions, it has a lot to do with them always getting injured, but having some cornerback depth will never hurt anybody. You know, if your team drafts a cornerback and to have some depth, you're not going to be mad about that, and I think the Lions are going to do just that. They need help on defense, and they're going to get just that. All right, the Colts pick belongs to the Jets, and I have the Jets selecting inside offensive lineman Oliva Vega Ioane. I have no fucking clue how to say that, to be honest, but he's an offensive lineman on the inside from Penn State. And I mean, the Jets, they don't have a whole lot on their team, and they just drafted some defense, so I think they're going to draft some offense, and drafting an inside offensive lineman is going to help rebuild that offense for a brighter future. All right, the Bucs with the 17th pick after the trade are going to take tight end Kenyon Sadiq from Oregon. And the Bucs, they lost Mike Evans in free agency, and this doesn't really matter too much, but they also lost Rachaad White, who was their backup running back. And doesn't matter too much, but I think it does kind of factor in that they've lost some offensive pieces this offseason. And I think they're going to draft a tight end just because Cade Otton, he's a solid tight end, but I think they're going to try and go in a different direction and pass the torch to Kenyon Sadiq. All right, with the 18th overall pick, I have the Minnesota Vikings selecting defensive tackle Peter Woods from Clemson. And the Vikings, to be honest, they have a really good roster. You wouldn't think that because they weren't very good last year, but outside of quarterback, their roster is loaded. But they did lose Jonathan Allen in free agency, and I think they're going to try and replace him with Peter Woods. All right, at number 19th overall, I have the Carolina Panthers selecting wide receiver Casey Concepcion from Texas A&M. The Panthers, they have Tetairoa McMillan, and Tetairoa McMillan's a really good wide receiver, but other than that, they don't have a lot at the wide receiver position. And with Kenyon Sadiq off the board, I don't really think they're going to go in the direction of tight end. I think they're going to just help out their offense by drafting a wide receiver because their offense was very inconsistent last year, and hopefully this pick will give them some offensive consistency. All right, the Packers pick belongs to the Cowboys, and with the 20th overall pick, I have the Cowboys selecting edge rusher Keldrick Falk from Auburn. The Cowboys need defense really badly, and this is the best defensive player available. And it's kind of about as simple as that. Like, I don't know a whole lot about Keldrick Falk, but I mean, I assume he's a really good player if he's this high on the board. So, yeah. All right, with the 21st overall pick, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers selecting offensive tackle Caleb Lomu from Utah. And this one is kind of a weird one. Not that it's a weird pick or anything, but it's kind of more about the Steelers' plan. Because Aaron Rodgers isn't exactly being forward about what he wants to do. So I think the Steelers are going to just play it safe and draft an offensive tackle because you usually can't really go wrong there. I mean, it's never a bad idea to have a lot of depth on the offensive tackle front. So I think that drafting this guy is going to be their plan, and we'll see if Aaron Rodgers plays or if they have to scramble and find a quarterback in the draft when he randomly announces his retirement or some shit during the draft. All right, at number 22 overall, I have the Los Angeles Chargers selecting offensive tackle Caden Proctor from Alabama. And Justin Herbert got beat up like crazy last year, and I think the Chargers are going to do everything they can to make sure that does not happen again because he's their guy. They don't want their guy getting beat up like that. So I think they're going to draft the best offensive tackle available. All right, at number 23, I have the Eagles selecting safety Dylan Theinman, I think is how you say that. Safety from Oregon. And this one, I think they're just going to be replacing a guy they lost in free agency. They lost Reed Blankenship to the Texans, and I think they're going to try and fill that void with this pick here, and we'll see if it works out. All right, with the 24th overall pick that belonged to the Jags and now belongs to the Browns, Emmanuel McNeil Warren, safety from Toledo, is the pick that I'm going with. And the Browns defense is already pretty good, but they could definitely use a safety, hence the pick. And he's the best safety available, and they already drafted an offensive guy, so I have him taken Emmanuel McNeill-Warren. Alright, at number 25 overall, I have the Chicago Bears selecting defensive tackle Caden McDonald from Ohio State. And the Bears need some defense. They were pretty good last year, but their defense was pretty bad. So I think they're going to take the best available defensive tackle, and I'll just leave it at that. Alright, at number 26 overall, I have the Buffalo Bills selecting cornerback Avion Terrell from Clemson. And I know cornerback's kind of a cop-out pick, but the thing is, the Bills, they got some competition in their division now. Drake May and the Patriots aren't going anywhere. And I think that this pick is going to help slow down Drake May. And yeah, I think that this will be a good addition for the Buffalo Bills. Alright, we got another trade coming through. This pick belonged to the 49ers, but I have them trading that pick to the Jets for the Jets' 2nd, 3rd, and 7th pick this year. And with the Jets' newly acquired number 27 overall pick, I have them selecting quarterback Ty Simpson from Alabama. And the big question this year with Ty Simpson is whether or not he's going to be drafted in the 1st or the 2nd round. And I think what it comes down to is whether or not a team wants him enough to draft him late in the 1st. And I think the Jets do. I think they're going to take him in the hopes that he can, let's say, redirect their franchise, because they've been kind of a dumpster fire for the last 15 years, to be completely honest. And I think they're going to take a swing on a quarterback, and we'll see if it works out. Alright, with the 28th overall pick, I have the Houston Texans selecting offensive tackle Blake Miller. And I mean, this one, I think that the Texans need some offensive line, and they've made some good additions this offseason to help with their offensive line. And I think they're going to draft one as well, just to ensure that CJ Stroud has more time than he did last year, because last year the Texans offense was honestly a bit of a mess, and the fact that they made it to the divisional round just shows how great their defense was. And this could honestly propel them to the Super Bowl if they get lucky enough. Alright, with the 29th overall pick that now belongs to the Chiefs, I have them selecting edge rusher Akeem Mesidor from Miami. They already drafted a defensive player, but here's the thing. I think their offense genuinely got screwed last year. I mean, Xavier Worthy missed some time. I mean, the whole Rashee Rice thing is kind of a whole situation on its own. They didn't really have a good running back, but they brought in Kenneth Walker. I think that's going to help their offense out tremendously. And they also should be getting Rashee Rice back. And Xavier Worthy should be healthy for the whole season. And Mahomes should also be healthy for most of the season, after he recovers from his ACL tear. And yeah, I think they're going to just keep building on their defense just because, they got 2 picks, they might as well. And the Broncos' 30th pick belongs to the Dolphins, and I have the Dolphins trading that pick to the Eagles for the Eagles' 2nd, 4th, and 5th round picks. I think the Dolphins are just going to try and stack up on as many picks as they can. Alright, and the 30th pick via Dolphins, I have the Eagles selecting wide receiver Omar Cooper Jr. from Indiana University. And I know they have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, but it's very likely that A.J. Brown gets traded this offseason to the Patriots. It's just that it's not going to happen, probably not going to happen during the draft. It could, but I don't think it's going to. And I think they're just going to take a wide receiver just for insurance, just because the Eagles are another one of those teams where their whole roster is just absolutely insane. So I think they're going to take him, and we'll see if their offense can actually be watchable this year. Alright, with the number 31 overall pick, I have the New England Patriots selecting edge rusher Cassius Howell from Texas A&M. And this is a BPA, to be honest, and that means best player available. And I mean, the Patriots do need an edge rusher, though, because their team isn't as good as people probably think, because they went to the Super Bowl, but they also lost Stephon Diggs. They lost a couple of defensive pieces, their whole easy schedule thing. And I was gonna have them take Omar Cooper Jr., but since the Eagles leapfrogged them and he's not on the board anymore, I don't really think they're gonna take one in the first round. They might take one in the second, but for now, I'm gonna have them taking this edge rusher. And ending the draft, we have the Seattle Seahawks selecting edge rusher TJ Parker from Clemson. And this is another one where it's BPA, but I also think that the Seahawks need some help on defense, which sounds weird, but they lost a couple of guys in free agency. So I think they're going to try and replace some of that void with this pick here. And yeah, I know they need a running back too, because they don't have Kenneth Walker, but I just don't think there's a running back here that's worth being drafted. And I really don't think the Seahawks are going to be the team to reach on a running back with this pick. I think they're just going to wait until their next pick in the second round. So yeah, that's the draft. Here's all the picks in order, 1 through 11. And then there's 12 through 22. And then there's 23 through 32. I just did that so that way, in case you guys wanted to take screenshots of it or something, you could do that. But yeah, that's all I got. Thank you so much for watching. If you are participating in watching the draft like myself, I hope you enjoy it. I hope whatever you want your team to draft, they end up drafting it. And I appreciate you watching it, and sorry it came out so late. My editing software wasn't exactly being super cooperative with me, so that's why it's coming out super late. But got about 5-ish hours till the draft, and I'm really looking forward to it. And if you guys don't have a first round pick, if your team doesn't have a first round pick, I guess that kind of sucks. But you know, if your team does have a first round pick, hopefully they get who they want. And I'll see you guys in my next video.